Chapter 4999. However, now that Xiao Sou had placed all her attention on Jun Lingxuan, he felt extremely helpless. He hoped that he could leave the immortal cloud's secret realm alive this time. Otherwise, if they continued fighting like this, he was really worried that he would not be able to see the sun again. Hearing Xiao Sudong's words, Xiao Sou and Jun Lingxuan's expressions froze slightly. They already had some understanding of what had happened in the Radiant Ruins. However, when they first heard the news, both of them were extremely disdainful. If it was not for the fact that they had not entered the Radiant Ruins, Bewitching and Chen Ying might not have been the ones in the limelight. If they could still refute the previous matter, then facing such a situation now, their rebuttal seemed extremely powerless. This was because they did not intend to risk their lives to explore this point. Bewitching and Qin Feng's speed was extremely fast. After the two of them got close, they directly jumped into the river and tried to use their origin energy in the river at the first moment. When the shoals of fish in the river noticed that someone had entered, they immediately swam over. Upon closer inspection, Bewitching also noticed that these fish had sharp teeth and blood-red eyes. They were filled with excitement, as if they had not seen food for a long time. Bewitching. After Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the shoals of fish approaching, she hurriedly called out to remind him. The next moment, Bewitching also rushed back at the first moment. The shoals of fish were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they opened their mouths full of sharp teeth and bit toward them. Whoosh! Bewitching's figure rushed forward and quickly returned to the shore. Everyone saw that the shoals of fish had jumped out of the lake and chased after Bewitching until he returned to the shore. Only then did they unwillingly return to the river. After noticing that Bewitching had returned safely, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others quietly heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did they feel relieved. Fortunately, he's fine. Shengguan Yingying patted her chest. This matter was truly too thrilling. It tested her endurance. This is the first time I've seen such a terrifying school of fish. How sharp are their teeth? When Xiren shook his head and sighed, even when we were facing demonic beasts back then, I didn't feel that it was this dangerous. That's because the scene just now was too shocking. In fact, it's almost the same. Bewitching smiled faintly. At the same time, Chen Feng made it back to the shore. Even though he was expressionless, everyone could still feel the lingering fear in his heart. After wiping the water off his head, Chen Feng walked over as well. What did you get? In my opinion, no matter how strange the river water is, there is also something strange about this school of fish, Bewitching suddenly said. As soon as he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others narrowed their eyes, and their eyes were filled with questions and doubts. In their opinion, there was either something strange about the river or the fish. They didn't expect Bewitching to think that it was both. Chen Feng nodded. I think so too. Bewitching frowned. The river water is indeed hindering the use of origin energy. I can't even use 1/10 of my usual strength. The closer I am to the center, the stronger the suppression. Chapter 5000. These fish can absorb elemental energy? Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes flashed. If that's the case, these fish are also demonic beasts? That should be the case. Chen Feng's tone gradually became more certain. Only this can explain the previous situation. Previously, when everyone entered the river, they did not even think of using their elemental energy. Hence, they did not notice this. Furthermore, these fish are completely transparent, making it difficult to distinguish them in this clear river. By the time they felt the pain, these fish had already absorbed their elemental energy at the fastest speed possible. After losing their elemental energy, they are no different from ordinary people. Naturally, it would be difficult for them to deal with these piranhas. Bewitching's thin lips opened slightly. Indifferent and cold words came out of his mouth, filled with rationality and logic. Previously, everyone was still somewhat confused. However, after his explanation, they were able to connect the dots. So that's how it is. Xiren understood. If that's the case, regardless of who it is, they will not be able to cross this river. Even though those cultivators had lost their lives because they were caught off guard, even if they were prepared, after losing their elemental energy and facing such a crazy school of fish, no one would be able to cross. Unless everyone went down together and separated the fish, only then would it be possible for them to cross the river safely. However, a large majority of the cultivators would definitely die. Obviously, this was not a good solution. Following Xiren's words, everyone sunk into silence. Indeed, in such a situation, there was no suitable solution. Since we have already understood the situation, let's think of a solution. I feel that there will be a solution eventually. Chen Feng's clear eyes were shining with a resolute brilliance. It was a pair of eyes that were as black as gemstones. Regardless of the time, they were always shining. After Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that pair of eyes, she immediately understood how Chen Feng had been able to reach where he was today. That was because his heart was always filled with hope, which was the complete opposite of the coldness he displayed. At this moment, Mo Yunjue also came to everyone's side and could not help but ask, "If we can't cross the river directly, can we cross by air?" As soon as he said that, everyone's eyes lit up before dimming again. "Since such a trap has been set up here, I'm afraid they won't let us pass so easily," Chen Feng said with a deep voice. At their level of cultivation, they could already completely rely on essence energy to temporarily fly in the air. Even if he couldn't do it, he could still rely on magic tools to do it. However, since there were so many restrictions here, it was likely that the sky was already restricted. "No matter what, let's give it a try," Di Beichen said. In the next moment, Mo Yunjue tried to cross the river in midair. However, when he got close to the river, he realized that his yuan power was suppressed and could not support him to continue floating in midair. Seeing this, everyone exchanged glances. Their eyes were filled with understanding. Sure enough, the result was as they had expected. As long as you get close to the river, your elemental energy will be suppressed, and you won't be able to fly. Mo Yunjue's cold and hard face revealed a trace of helplessness. Without elemental energy, flying artifacts would be similarly uncontrollable. For a moment, everyone fell into silence and began to think about how to cross the river. Chapter 5001. Regarding this, Di Beichen and Qin Feng did not hide anything. At a time like this, the more people there were, the better. As long as they could think of a way, it would undoubtedly be the best. It can't be, right? This restriction is so abnormal, who can pass? Why don't we try to attract these shoals of fish? We'll kill them one by one. This way we might be able to pass. According to your method, how long do we have to stay here? One suggestion after another was raised by everyone. However, most of these suggestions were rejected by more people the moment they were raised. Because most of the ideas they came up with were rotten. For a moment, everyone was shrouded in a haze. At this moment, Xiao Xuanzi's happy voice sounded. "Master, I can bring you across the river." Everyone who was originally deep in thought was suddenly interrupted by Xiao Xuanzi and immediately frowned. If they could fly across, wouldn't they have done so long ago? However, when they raised their heads, everyone found that Xiao Xuanzi was flying in the air above the river, looking at Di Beichen and the rest with a smile on its face. Xiao Xuanzi can actually fly above the river. When Xiren's face revealed a deep astonishment, but a trace of a pleasantly surprised smile appeared on the corner of his lips. Xiao Xuanzi can fly by itself, so it doesn't need to use origin energy. Therefore, it can bring us across. Di Beichen also reacted, and a joyful smile appeared on his handsome face. He did not expect that after thinking for a long time, they still could not think of a suitable method. Xiao Xuanzi was actually the source of this solution. Xiao Xuanzi, amazing! Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi secretly gave Xiao Xuanzi a thumbs up. This problem was originally impossible to find a breakthrough, but unexpectedly, Xiao Xuanzi quietly solved this problem. It was really surprising. Hearing that, Xiao Xuanzi proudly flapped its wings and raised its head high, looking very proud. Hee, I'm also very useful. While laughing, Xiao Xuanzi looked at Di Beichen fawningly. It was obvious that it was waiting for Di Beichen's praise. As a contracted beast, being able to help its master was undoubtedly the happiest thing in the world. However, because of the existence of Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi, its current cultivation was not as good as theirs. It was completely suppressed and could only be ordered around normally, without any chance to perform. One had to know that as a mystical fire demonic rock, its race was also very noble and had always been envied by everyone. It had never thought that it would be reduced to a supporting role. It felt very helpless in its heart. And now, it had finally found a place where it could unleash its full potential. Naturally, it was overjoyed. "Little Schwanzi, you're awesome this time." Bewitching gave Little Schwanzi a thumbs up. Having received Bewitching's praise, Xiao Schwanzi was even more proud. His head was practically raised to the sky. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but chuckle. Little Schwanzi was indeed a little fellow who had just been born. His temperament was also so cute. Why don't we give it a try? Di Xiaofeng's eyes shone brightly. This place could be said to be a place with wolves in front and tigers behind. If they could leave this place as soon as possible, it would undoubtedly be best. Hearing that, Di Beichen nodded, then turned to Xiao Schwanzi and said, "Xiao Schwanzi, try and see if you can fly to the other side." "Yes, master." Chapter 5002. Di Beichen and the rest had been staring at Xiao Schwanzi's figure, their eyes filled with worry. Although this was very feasible, they were still worried that something unexpected would happen midway. Otherwise, it would be dangerous. Fortunately, the situation that everyone was worried about did not happen. Xiao Schwanzi successfully flew to the other side of the river and happily waved its wings at Di Beichen and the rest. Seeing this, everyone was finally relieved. I couldn't think of a suitable way after thinking for so long. I didn't expect it to be so easy. Xiao Schwanzi has really done a great job this time." Xiren's gentle face was full of smiles, revealing a bit of surprise and slyness. He was also aware of Xiao Schwanzi's situation. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher were all so abnormal. Xiao Schwanzi was also very helpless. However, they were also very clear that the reason why Xiao Schwanzi's current combat power was not comparable to Baisher and the rest was because its cultivation time was still relatively short. Once it grew up, Xiao Schwanzi would also be a very powerful existence. That's right. Actually, Xiao Schwanzi's progress has always been very fast. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. The mystical fire demon rock was also an extremely powerful race. Since Xiao Schwanzi was born, its cultivation speed had always been very fast. Not only that, because of the suppression of the other three beasts, Xiao Schwanzi was especially hardworking. Even if it was the other mystical fire demon rock, their cultivation speed would definitely not be as fast as Xiao Schwanzi. After the other cultivators noticed that the mystical fire demon rock had successfully flown over just like that, an envious light appeared in their eyes. Obviously, this was the best way that they could think of at the moment. In that case, the Di family and the Lin family can directly cross the river. But our team doesn't have a contract beast that can fly. Once they leave, what should we do? After regaining their senses, everyone was dumbfounded. No one wanted to stay in this place forever. There was no path in front or behind. Even if they were cultivators, they could not stay here for too long. Moreover, they did not want to stay here for a whole 10 years. For a moment, everyone's eyes fell on Xiao Schwanzi. Their only chance now was to ask the Di family for help. With the mystical fire demon rock strength, it wouldn't be a problem to fly people for a period of time. It was just a matter of running back and forth a few times. How about we ask the Di family for help? Will they agree? Xiao Schwanzi only felt that in a short moment, everyone's eyes fell on it. It almost instantly became the focus of attention, and it was a little surprised. However, after thinking it through, it was happy to accept it. After all, the feeling of being the center of attention was pretty good. Since Little Schwanzi can bring everyone across the river, why don't we set off? Di Xiaofeng suggested. This area was so strange. It would be a good choice to leave as soon as possible. Di Beichen nodded. Okay. Come, you guys follow Little Schwanzi first. Di Xiaofeng pointed at a few family disciples, indicating that they should be the first batch to go over. Seeing this, the few disciples nodded and immediately sat on Xiao Schwanzi's back, flying towards the other side of the river. Everything went smoothly. Xiao Xuanzi brought them to the other side of the river and put them down before returning. Chapter 5003. Soon, more than half of the D family's cultivators had left. Seeing this, Chen Feng slowly walked over. A trace of complexity and hesitation could be seen on his unparalleled and cold face. He paused slightly and stopped in front of Di Beichen. "Young Master D." Di Beichen raised his head. "I." Chen Feng opened his mouth and frowned. "I." Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and asked, "You want my help?" Chen Feng nodded with an awkward expression on his face. In fact, he had never asked anyone for help. Hence, it was somewhat difficult for him to ask for help at this moment. "I won't let you help for free. Whatever you need, just tell me." Chen Feng's voice was magnetic and cold. His extremely black eyes were like obsidian that was blooming with stars. Vaguely, a trace of eagerness could be seen in them. This eagerness was not because he was eager to get Di Beichen to agree. Rather, he was eager to prove that he was not someone who liked to take advantage of others. "I know that I haven't repaid the favor in the ruins. However, if you need anything from me, or if you need anything, just tell me directly." As he finished speaking, Chen Feng raised his head and met Di Beichen's eyes that were smiling yet not smiling. The next moment, Di Beichen's lips curled up slightly, forming a warm and sunny smile. "I don't need anything from you now." Chen Feng blanked slightly. Immediately, he understood that with the current situation of Di Beichen and the rest, they did not seem to need his help. Normally, there were quite a number of cultivators who needed his help. However, Di Beichen and the rest were obviously not among them. "Let's be friends, how about it?" Di Beichen asked with a smile. "Emichim?" Chen Feng was already thinking about what he should do if Di Beichen did not agree. However, when he suddenly heard this, he was unable to react for a while. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were also smiling. If they hadn't seen Chen Feng's current conflicted expression with their own eyes, they would find it hard to believe that the Chen Feng who was usually the leader would have such a side to him. "Master, I never expected that Chen Feng would have such a side to him. Isn't the contrast too huge?" Xiao He felt a burst of interest. Compared to his previous understanding of Chen Feng, the gap between the current Chen Feng and the current Chen Feng was rather huge. Normally, everyone is the one begging Chen Feng. I'm afraid he has never begged anyone before. Coupled with his temperament, it is indeed quite difficult for him to ask for help. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. From the looks of it, Chen Feng was not as cold as he seemed. At the very least, he was willing to lower his head and ask for help for the sake of the cultivators in his team. After sensing Di Beichen's goodwill, a smile appeared on Chen Feng's face. "All right." Di Beichen blinked. A trace of playfulness and a smile could be seen in his bright eyes. "Since we're friends, it's only right that we help each other. Ask your team members to come over." Hearing this, Chen Feng did not answer. He only looked at Di Beichen and the rest deeply. For some unknown reason, his heart was somewhat touched. All along, the people he interacted with were mostly people who only cared about benefits. Hence, he was used to such a method. He had always felt that among the younger generation, his favors were still quite useful. However, at this moment, facing the calmness and sincerity of Di Beichen and the rest, he suddenly felt that he was too unscrupulous. At least, at this moment, he felt somewhat ashamed. However, what he felt was more of a yearning. Chapter 5004. Obviously, the reason why Di Beichen and the others made friends with him was because of him, not because of his identity and future potential. In fact, he believed that whether it was Di Beichen or Bailey Hongzhuang, their future potential would not be lower than his. As the representative of the Di family, Di Xiaofeng was also a well-known person. Apart from his cultivation being slightly lower than him, he was not weaker in other aspects. He originally thought that Di Beichen was the most powerful person in the younger generation of the Di family. However, he now realized that Di Beichen was not weaker than his elder brother at all. In fact, he might even be stronger. He was still unclear about Di Beichen's true strength. However, from what he knew so far, Di Beichen's performance was outstanding in all aspects. He had an intuition that Di Beichen was definitely a person who would soar to the sky in one go. Such a situation was probably beyond the knowledge of a lot of cultivators. Almost everyone thought that it was a very stupid thing for the D family to give the position of young master to this young man who had always lived in the lower realm. Therefore, no one regarded Bewitching as an opponent. However, Bewitching's performance this time had undoubtedly shocked everyone. Facing the friendship of such a gentleman, he was naturally happy to accept it. He was even very happy. Thank you very much. Since you're a friend, thank you is too polite. Bewitching's eyes were full of smiles. Since coming to the upper realm, most of the people he came into contact with were his opponents. He really did not make any friends. After these few contacts, he felt that Chen Feng was a friend worth making. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were also full of smiles. Di Xiaofeng, on the other hand, secretly gave Bewitching a thumbs up. His younger brother was really amazing. One had to know that there were very few people who could communicate with Chen Feng normally. At least until now, he had not seen anyone who had a good relationship with Chen Feng. Who would have thought that Bewitching would be able to pull the other party onto the same boat as soon as he made a move? When everyone saw that Chen Feng had actually become friends with Bewitching, deep astonishment appeared in their eyes. This situation was clearly beyond their expectations. Xiao Xuanzi naturally took on the heavy responsibility of bringing people across the river. Batch after batch of cultivators crossed the riverbank under Xiao Xuanzi's lead. After seeing this scene, the other cultivators couldn't help but have their own thoughts. Flying contracted beasts were the rarest to begin with. Most contracted beasts couldn't even fly. Even if they could fly, if they weren't big enough, they wouldn't be able to fly over. After all this, only Xiao Xuanzi could do it. Therefore, if he wanted to cross the river, he could only ask Bewitching for help. The cultivators of the Great Devil Sect were undoubtedly very happy. Although their eldest senior brother usually didn't care about others, but no matter when they encountered a problem, their eldest senior brother was always able to solve it. Even now, they didn't have to worry. Young Master D, can you bring it over for us too? That's right, I can give you something in exchange. I definitely won't let you help for nothing. Actually, we have a good relationship with your family all these years. This is my treasure, can you bring me over in exchange? Look at me, look at me. After the first cultivator opened his mouth, the other cultivators also shouted one after another. They kept taking out treasures that they thought were better than others, just to let Xiao Xuanzi bring them across the river. Chapter 5005. Seeing this scene, Di Xiaofeng and the others were slightly stunned at first, then a surprised smile appeared on their faces. Looks like it's not bad to do business here. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly, and a cunning smile appeared on her pretty and delicate face. Normally, it wasn't easy to snatch treasures from other people's hands. Now that everyone took the initiative to hand over their treasures, it would be a waste not to take it. Speaking of money grubbers, Bailey Hongzhuang was also one. After all, like master, like demonic beast. From the behavior of the four beasts, one could see Bailey Hongzhuang's character. This is a good idea. Xiao Hei's eyes shone with a bright and covetous luster. These are all good treasures. The treasures in the upper realm were much better than those in the lower realm. Normally, they would need a lot of cultivation resources when they cultivated. Now, most of the cultivation resources that everyone took out were spiritual herbs. To Bailey Hongzhuang, this was undoubtedly very necessary. Bewitching looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's money-grubber appearance, and the smile in his eyes gradually deepened. He immediately nodded and said, "Okay." Xiao Xuanzi's physical strength is also limited. Therefore, whoever takes out the best treasures can go first. Following Bewitching's words, everyone's eyes lit up, and they quickly took out treasures that they thought were good. Quick, take a look at my treasures. I'll give all of these immortal spiritual herbs to you. Bring me over first. Why are you squeezing? Take a look at mine first. At the same time, Bewitching and Di Xiaofeng began to line up according to the value of the treasures that everyone took out. Shangguan Ying used her elbow to nudge Bailey Hongzhuang, and looked up and said, "Hongzhuang, I didn't realize that Bewitching was quite good at doing business. I'm very satisfied with his progress." Bailey Hongzhuang blinked. This feeling of counting treasures until one's hands cramped was really good. Shengguan Yingying could not help but laugh out loud. I'm afraid that you are the only ones who can still do business in the immortal cloud's secret realm. Little Xuanzi looked at the long line that quickly formed, and the expression in its eyes changed again and again. With so many people, how many times would it have to run, master? Little Xuanzi looked at Bewitching with eyes full of resentment. As a mystic fire monstrous rock, its function was not to carry people. Bewitching looked at the infinitely resentful Xiao Xuanzi and slowly said, "What reward do you want?" "Any reward? I'll think about it. I want a feast." "Sure." "Delicacies?" "Sure." "Manchuhan Imperial Feast?" "Sure." "I also want a female mystic fire demon rock." Bewitching narrowed his eyes and patted Xiao Xuanzi's head. "You're still underage. It's too early." Xiao Xuanzi flapped its wings and touched its little head. "Okay, then I'll put it on the tab. I promise you," Bewitching said heroically. Xiao Xuanzi's eyes shone brightly. It excitedly took on the role of a flying demonic beast and began to lead batch after batch of cultivators to cross the river. On the other side, Bewitching looked at the storage ring that was gradually filled up, and his expression was satisfied. When the other cultivators were brought to the other side of the river in batches, Jun Lingshuan and the others' expressions were already extremely ugly. Chapter 5006. Mystical Fire Monstrous Rock. This kind of contracted beast was also very rare. Bewitching came from the lower realms, but he actually had a contracted beast of this level. Now that he connected everything together, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was unfair. He was about to die from depression. What should we do now? Xiao Sudong hesitantly asked the question in his heart. Obviously, it was impossible for the D family to bring them along. Once everyone left, they couldn't stay here forever, right? If they stayed here, they wouldn't be able to cross the river. Jun Lingshuan and Xiao Sou's expressions were already very ugly. Now that they heard Xiao Sudong's question, the haze on their faces became even thicker. What should they do? It would be great if they knew what to do. Ao Zhengquang glanced at Xiao Sudong, hinting him not to speak. In this situation, none of them knew what to do. Xiao Sudong also understood and didn't say anything else. However, the anxiety on his face revealed his inner thoughts. At the same time, the cultivators of the Nangong family and the Chu family were in the same situation. Previously, they had planned to join forces to deal with the D family, but their plan was ruined by them. Now that they had to ask the D family, it was not easy for them to put down their pride. Most importantly, even if they put down their pride, it wouldn't be of any use. Because the other party wouldn't care about them at all. But if they remained silent like this, what would they do once everyone left? Nangong Yuqing couldn't help but look at Chu Yingming, wanting to know what they were planning. If Chu Yingming was willing to lower his head and look for Bewitching, then he could take the opportunity to join. Staying in this place always gave him an indescribable sense of crisis, so it was safer to leave. Of course, the most important thing was that once Bewitching and the others left, he didn't know how to cross the river. Chu Yingming's gaze also fell on Bewitching and the others. He was also very helpless about this. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have listened to Jun Lingshuan's slanderous words. Not only did he end up with nothing, but he also ended up in this situation. The cultivators of the Chu family also anxiously looked at Chu Yingming, hoping that he could take the lead and stand up. After thinking for a moment, Chu Yingming directly walked towards Bewitching. Young Master D. Looking at Chu Yingming's appearance, Bewitching and the others' eyes flashed with coldness. However, Chu Yingming seemed as if he didn't see this, and his face still had a faint smile. Young Master D heart, Chu Yingming he's his expression. Young masters is of, eyes young masters is, s young master is, ants young master, s's. A's is. Two's to us. Is he? Sure enough, he's not a simple person. Lin Taxing and the others also walked over after seeing Chu Yingming approach. They didn't have a good impression of this guy. If they hadn't successfully turned the situation around, Chu Yingming wouldn't have shown them any mercy. Chapter 5007. Nangong Yuqing, Junling Xuan, and Xiao Sou also paid attention after noticing Chu Yingming's departure. They just wanted to know what the result would be. As long as Di Beichen agreed to Chu Yingming's request, then Nangong Yuqing would follow closely. Even if this was indeed a bit shameful, it was nothing compared to their lives. This Chu Yingming is really shameless. Lin Yi's eyes were full of dissatisfaction. He tried to deal with us before, but he changed his attitude in a blink of an eye. It's really ironic. The Chu family's power is not small. In fact, offending them is not good for them. Di's eyes couldn't help but say. He was also full of disgust for Chu Yingming, but if they could turn hostility into friendship, it would not be a bad thing for them to have one less opponent. But if this is the case, isn't it too easy for them? Lin Yi frowned. They wanted to take our lives before. Let's see what decision Di Beichen makes. Di's face was complicated. In this situation, he really didn't know what kind of decision to make. However, Xiao Xuanzi was Di Beichen's contract beast. No matter what decision Di Beichen made, they would support it. Chu Yingming looked at Di Beichen with a smile. He believed that Di Beichen would definitely agree. This was because it was not a good thing for them to offend a family that could threaten them. However, Di Beichen's next words made the smile on his face suddenly freeze. Why should I help you? The cold and indifferent voice was full of ridicule and ridicule. Di Beichen stood proudly. His eyes were indifferent, but it inexplicably gave people the pressure of a superior. As soon as these words came out, the eyes of everyone present changed slightly. They didn't expect Di Beichen to not buy Chu Yingming's account. I didn't expect this Di Beichen to be neither servile nor overbearing. He is so rude to Chu Yingming. I think he is too impulsive. It's not a good thing for him to offend a powerful opponent like this. It's probably because of this idea that you haven't been able to stand out. I think this is a real man. Everyone's views were not unanimous, and they immediately began to argue. Chu Yingming obviously didn't expect Di Beichen to have such an attitude. A haze flashed in his eyes, but it disappeared in a blink of an eye. Since Di Gongzi is doing business, there is naturally no reason not to. There is no reason not to do it. What's more, after seeing it, you should be satisfied. After you see it, you should be satisfied with it. Unfortunately, I'm not a qualified businessman. When I do business, I only care about whether it's pleasing to the eye. Chu Yingming's expressions. Chu Yingtus chooses. Chu Yingto choose. You will only bring trouble to your family? Ha, Di Beichen suddenly chuckled. Being afraid of trouble will only make people look down on you. You probably don't understand me, but I have never been afraid of trouble. Because sooner or later, trouble will be swept away. Chapter 5008. Di Beichen stared at Chu Yingming. His unparalleled face suddenly had a trace of seriousness and arrogance, revealing an evil charm and unruliness. His meaning was clear. I don't put you in my eyes at all, so you shouldn't think too highly of yourself. Chu Yingming could no longer maintain the smile on his face. That smile first stiffened, then turned cold, then ferocious. All of this happened in a short period of time. You're very arrogant. Chu Yingming narrowed his eyes. His cold voice carried a hint of threat. You'll regret this sooner or later. Then you don't need to worry about it. Compared to Chu Yingming's extremely gloomy face, Di Beichen's smile was exceptionally bright, like the sun shining brightly. At least, I'm very happy right now. Once these words were spoken, the cultivators of the Chu clan all had angry looks on their faces. Ever since they entered the Immortal Cloud's secret realm, no one has ever dared to treat their young master with such an attitude. It was too despicable. Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichen with some worry. Beichen, like this, will have another opponent. The Chu clan was not any weaker than the Di family. Before, they didn't have any grudges with the Chu clan, nor did they have any dealings with them. But after this incident, the two sides had completely turned against each other. So what? Di Beichen raised his good-looking eyebrows. His handsome face was filled with arrogance and unruliness. This time, they were the first to find trouble with us. If the Chu clan was a much stronger existence than the Di family, then we could just swallow our anger. But since they're not stronger than us, why should we be afraid of them? This time, they were the first to find trouble with us. If we just let it go like this, then we'll really be soft-hearted. He admitted that Chu Yingming was a character. But at the same time, he didn't put him in his eyes. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Di Xiaofeng took a deep look at him and suddenly laughed. He nodded and said, "You're right. If they aren't afraid, why should we be?" Lin Taxing breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Di Xiaofeng also understood this point. His eyes sparkled with excitement. "Beichen, your words are really satisfying." Earlier, when the Jun family and the others joined forces to deal with them, he was already prepared to throw caution to the wind. However, based on the situation just now, he was really worried that Di Beichen would agree. Although he understood that agreeing would temporarily reduce the number of enemies, he still felt a little aggrieved in his heart. However, he did not expect Di Beichen to be so stubborn. Perhaps in the eyes of others, he was impulsive, but he felt that this was a real man. In fact, it wasn't just Lin Taxing. The Di family and the other cultivators also looked at Di Beichen with eyes full of splendor. Although they had listened to Di Beichen's instructions before, at this moment, there was a trace of submission in their hearts. Di Beichen had conquered them with his actions, making them submit from the bottom of their hearts. This was their young master. That's right. Sooner or later, the trouble would be swept away. They would never forgive anyone who harbored evil intentions towards them. This was the heart of a cultivator's great path. Compared to their previous forbearance, this tit-for-tat confrontation had deeply impressed them. As cultivators, it was no big deal even if they lost their lives. The most important thing was that their hearts were at ease. Chapter 5009. Di's walked closer to Di Beichen. His black eyes were shining and his voice was serious. "Beichen, I had some misunderstandings about you before, but now, I respect you." When he said the last three words, Di's voice was unprecedentedly serious. Before, he always thought that out of all the disciples in the family, other than himself, no one was more suitable to be the Di family's young master. In his heart, the family was very important. After all, without the family, he would have no one to rely on. When Di Beichen came back, his heart was extremely shaken. Because he never thought that Di Beichen could come back. He had disappeared for so many years. Adding on the fact that he had the cursed body, it was impossible for him to come back alive. However, he did come back. Even if no one believed it, he really did come back. When he thought that the family head might give the position of young master to Di Beichen, who had always lived in the lower realm, he felt that it was very funny. The difference between the lower realm and the upper realm was not small. Even if Di Beichen was an outstanding existence in the lower realm, in the upper realm, he was only a normal person. Therefore, he was very unconvinced. Everyone who came from the lower realm was also unhappy. And now, Di Beichen's ability clearly told him this. It turned out that even if he came from the lower realm, he was not weaker than any of the upper realm's youths. In fact, he was even better. After several clashes, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang defeated Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou. To him, this was something that was impossible. However, every time it happened, it refreshed his knowledge. He saw how Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang turned the tide. He saw how they raised the spirits of the disciples. He knew very well that even he could not do this. Just now, after seeing how Di Beichen fought back against Chu Yingming, he no longer felt any dissatisfaction or disdain. He was convinced. It wasn't a helpless submission, but admiration from the bottom of his heart. God was still kind to the Di family. Even though their young master had been wandering outside for so many years, he was still able to lead the family members forward. Di Beichen and the others didn't expect Di Beichen to say something like this. However, Di Beichen's lips gradually curled up when he saw the sincerity in Di's eyes. "I also put away my prejudice against you. It's nice to meet you, cousin." Hearing this, Di's was slightly stunned. Then, a bright smile bloomed on his face. He nodded heavily. "Cousin." He understood that Di Beichen had also acknowledged him and was no longer prejudiced against him because of his previous recklessness. Seeing that the atmosphere between Di Beichen and Di's had eased, Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and smiled. This result was undoubtedly what they were most happy to see. At this moment, Di Xiaofeng was also completely relieved. Originally, his father had told him to help Di Beichen convince the other disciples of the family. Now, it seemed that his little brother had the ability to convince others. He didn't even need to do anything and everything could be resolved. Even he might not be able to compare to this kind of cohesive force. Young madam, I'm sorry for what happened before. Di's eyes looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. I was ignorant before. You are fully deserving. Chapter 50:10. He already knew how outstanding Bailey Hongzhuang was. But he still had to apologize, because only then would he truly feel at ease. At the same time, the way he addressed her also represented the approval of many disciples. Don't worry about what happened before. I didn't take it to heart. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Her gentle eyes were like a spring breeze, warming people's hearts. However, facing Bailey Hongzhuang's tolerance, Di's eyes felt even more ashamed. He had always thought of himself as a talent, but because of his birth, he didn't receive absolute attention. But now, he realized that the gap between them wasn't just a stream, but a chasm. Di Fanhao and the others' eyes shone with excitement. Even though they were still in danger, they inexplicably felt at ease. However, this scene was particularly dazzling in Chu Yingming's eyes. Not only was he mercilessly attacked by Di Beichen, but he had also become a stepping stone for Di Beichen to buy people's hearts. This made him even more unhappy. Jun Lingxuan quietly breathed a sigh of relief after seeing Di Beichen refuse Chu Yingming's proposal. He was really worried that if Di Beichen agreed, then he and Xiao Sou wouldn't know what to do. After all, in this way he, Xiao Sou, and the others would be isolated. However, now that Chu Yingming was rejected, it proved that Nangong Yuqing's request was also impossible. After all, the grudge between Nangong Yuqing and Di Beichen was more serious than the grudge between Chu Yingming and Di Beichen. Although he also couldn't cross the river, it was still very good as long as there was someone to be scapegoated. Beichen, the further you go, the more careful you have to be. Maybe when the number of people decreases, they will take the opportunity to attack you. In my opinion, we should go first. Anyway, we just need to let Xiao Xuanzi pick up the other cultivators. Di Xiaofeng's voice sounded, reminding Di Beichen. After what happened just now, it was obvious that the other party hated them to the core. Once he had the chance, he would not hesitate to attack them. Therefore, they had to be careful. Hearing Di Xiaofeng's words, Di Beichen also nodded. This possibility was indeed not small. They could not risk their lives. In fact, Jun Lingxuan and the others were indeed planning to do so. This was because they noticed that Di Beichen and the others were arranging for the other cultivators to cross the river one by one. However, they had no intention of crossing the river for the time being. Unexpectedly, Di Beichen crossed the river with the mystical fire demon rock in the next moment. Damn it! Jun Lingxuan couldn't help but curse. His hands clenched into fists, filled with hatred and anger. He felt that he had to get rid of Di Beichen as soon as possible. Otherwise, Di Beichen would definitely become a big problem for him. In the past, the Di family was already a difficult bone for them to chew. However, after all these years of cultivation, the situation had finally improved. If Di Beichen didn't appear this time, their Jun family would definitely be stronger than them in the Immortal Cloud's secret realm. Who would have thought that Di Beichen would come back at this time and firmly suppress him? It was easy to imagine how depressed he was. Chapter 50:11. Di Beichen also noticed Jun Lingxuan's expression, and his wise eyes revealed understanding. Di Xiaofeng's reminder was right. Jun Lingxuan didn't speak for so long in order to let them ignore this problem. From his angry expression at this moment, it could be seen how unhappy his action of leaving first made him. Jun Lingxuan, I wanted to end you directly, but since God wants to take you personally, I don't want to dirty my hands. Di Beichen looked at Jun Lingxuan playfully. That magnetic and pleasant voice came from mid-air and clearly entered Jun Lingxuan's ears. Jun Lingxuan, who was already extremely unhappy, after hearing this, his face became even uglier. Di Beichen, don't be too complacent. However, Di Beichen just looked at him indifferently. His godlike handsome face rippled with a faint smile, but in Jun Lingxuan's eyes, it was sarcasm and ridicule. This damned guy. Jun Lingxuan fiercely punched the ground, dripping with blood, but he didn't feel it at all. There was a burst of anger in his heart that seemed to want to burn him up. He wanted to vent, but he couldn't find a way to do so. This damned Bewitching, as long as he didn't kill him, he definitely wouldn't be happy. Xiao So was also shocked after seeing Jun Lingxuan's actions. She quickly grabbed Jun Lingxuan's injured hand and asked with concern, "Jun Lingxuan, what are you doing? Hurting yourself will only make him happier. Don't be impulsive anymore." Jun Lingxuan glanced at Xiao So, but didn't say anything. He just let Xiao So bandage him. The anger and haze in his eyes didn't dissipate at all. After crossing the river, Bailey Hongzhuang sat on the ground and looked into the distance. There was still a large forest in front of him. The lush green leaves exuded a strong vitality, reflecting a faint mottled luster under the sunlight. There were still many cultivators behind them who had yet to arrive, so they had to wait here for the time being. Right now, the Immortal Cloud's secret realm was much more dangerous than before. At the very least, before they were clear of the situation, it would be safer if everyone worked together. While everyone was resting and discussing what to do next, Bailey Hongzhuang sat silently with her eyes slightly narrowed, deep in thought. Bewitching sat down next to Bailey Hongzhuang. He followed Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze and saw nothing in front of him. He quietly asked, "Wife, what are you thinking about?" When Bailey Hongzhuang heard this, she glanced at Bewitching and said, "Bewitching, I've realized that we're getting closer and closer to the place where the stone is sensing us." When she said this, Bewitching couldn't help but feel astonished. "The stone is sensing us again?" "That's right." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. "Ever since we were chased here by the locusts, I've realized this. Do you think this could be a test set by the owner of the ruins?" No matter who it was, they would definitely set some tests when choosing their successor. Previously, they had entered the ruins so easily, but the inside of the ruins was filled with danger. If all the dangers they were facing now were part of the test, then everything made sense. After all, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's owners were obviously not ordinary people. The inheritance they had left behind was also not simple. Hence, the tests they had set were naturally not ordinary tests. Chapter 50:12. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "That's right. Even if the locusts didn't chase us here, we would have definitely come here. Maybe we were near these tests at that time. If the previous cultivators didn't come here, they wouldn't have been able to trigger all of these." Bewitching's gaze gradually became complicated. His voice was no longer as indifferent as before, but more serious. "Wife, from what we've experienced so far, these tests can be said to be more difficult than the previous one. We don't know how many more tests there will be in front of us, and we don't know how difficult the tests will be. I'm afraid it won't be easy to pass." Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Bewitching's eyes, which were as clear as fire, and immediately understood his worries. Bewitching was reminding her that they might face endless dangers later on. In fact, many of the situations they had encountered so far had already exceeded what they could bear. If Xiao Xuanzi wasn't able to fly this time, they definitely wouldn't have been able to cross the river. As for the following tests, they might not be so lucky. If they made a mistake, they would have to pay with their lives. A hint of hesitation flashed through her clear phoenix eyes, but it eventually turned into determination. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Bewitching and said, "No matter how dangerous it is, I have to go and take a look. Since we're here, it's fate. Moreover, they're Xiao He and Xiao Bai's previous masters. I've received their inheritance, so I have to make a trip there." Regardless of whether she could receive the inheritance in the end, she had to express her gratitude at least. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's determined look, Bewitching didn't say anything else and only nodded. "Since you've decided, I'll accompany you." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled brightly, revealing satisfaction and happiness. The happiest thing was that no matter what you wanted to do, there would always be someone who was willing to accompany you by your side and never let you feel lonely. Compared to the warmth of Bewitching and the others, the atmosphere on the other side of the river was unusually heavy. "Damn it. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have joined forces with you. Now I've fallen to such a state." Nangong Yuqing's face was filled with depression. He began to regret that he shouldn't have gotten into a conflict with Bewitching. If Xiao So was really willing to be with him, it would be fine. But now that Xiao So was going to be with Jun Lingxuan, he didn't get anything. On the contrary, he even offended such a strong opponent in the future. Previously, when they joined forces to destroy Bewitching, it was the same. They didn't get any benefits, and even the immortal herb was gone. This was really like trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Faced with the resentful gazes of his family's disciples, he felt even more ashamed. Jun Lingxuan ignored Nangong Yuqing's words. What's the point of saying this now? Previously, when we used eyes to lure Bewitching and the others over, we should have taken action directly. If it wasn't for the fact that someone was disloyal and unwilling to take action, things wouldn't be like this now. Are you talking about me? Chu Yingming's gaze became sharp. You were so confident in your plan, but in the end, you didn't even have the ability to convince others. You still want me to take action. Chapter 50:13. Jun Lingxuan was startled. Facing Chu Yingming's question, he didn't know how to refute it. Chu Yingming is right. Nangong Yuqing nodded. Jun Lingxuan, there was a problem with your previous plan. If you could have made everyone believe that Bewitching and the others were lying at that time, wouldn't all of this not have happened? Now, because of your rotten idea, we've been implicated. When this was brought up, Nangong Yuqing felt extremely depressed. One had to know that he had always been a person who kept his promises. However, because his lie had been exposed this time, it was obvious that his credibility was much weaker than before. But now, there were only losses and no gains. What's the use of your words in hindsight? Jun Lingxuan was unconvinced. At the time, you didn't say anything either. In the end, you were the one who proposed to take out the immortal spirit herb. Seeing everyone arguing more and more fiercely, Xiao So couldn't help but say, "Stop arguing. Is this useful?" Following Xiao So's words, Chu Yingming and the others looked at each other with displeasure, but didn't say anything. Indeed, at this time, it was useless to fight among themselves. Even if they didn't want to join hands with the other party, the situation forced them to. It's useless to say this now. The most important thing is to find a way to cross the river. The anger on Chu Yingming's face dissipated and was replaced with seriousness. This riverbank is not safe. I have a feeling that if we continue to stay here, something will happen. He always had a premonition of danger. Although he couldn't explain it clearly, this premonition was always accurate. So, according to his current thinking, it was best to leave this place as soon as possible. Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan nodded, but a trace of worry appeared between his brows. According to what Bewitching and the others learned, there is no way to cross this river. Once they lost the protection of their spirit energy, they had no way to deal with the school of piranhas in the river. If he only relied on his own strength, he wouldn't be able to display his full strength in the sea. Even if he was on the shore, it would be very difficult for him to face a school of fish. The disciples of the four clans fell into silence. This was what made them feel the most helpless. Let's think about it first. We'll definitely come up with something. Nangong Yuqing sighed, even though he didn't believe it himself. Sigh, if only I had a flying beast as well. What's the use of thinking about this now? It's better to think of something more reliable. Do you think Bewitching is telling the truth? Could it be that he's deliberately saying that for the sake of business? No, that's what Chenfeng said as well. For a time, the disciples of the four clans gathered together, and all kinds of guesses and ideas emerged. On the other side, under Xiao Xuanzi's unremitting efforts, the group of cultivators had already successfully crossed the river. Looking at the four great clans on the other side of the river, the crowd either ridiculed them, sympathized with them, or sighed with emotion. It's already late. I think we should rest here for now and consider leaving tomorrow. Di Xiaofeng's voice rang out. Chapter 50:14. Night quickly spread across the land. Bright stars twinkled in the dark sky, sprinkling down a silvery white luster. A cool breeze came from the surface of the river, bringing with it a refreshing coolness. The group of cultivators gathered together in groups. They were either chatting or cultivating. It was an extremely harmonious scene. Of course, this was the group that had crossed the river. On the other side of the river, it was still in full swing. Everyone was constantly thinking of ways to leave this place. Unfortunately, it didn't have any effect. Forget it, as long as we don't go into the river, we'll be safe. Let's rest first. Jun Lingxuan slowly said. They had been thinking for the whole day, but they didn't have any results. Since that was the case, they might as well rest first. Maybe they could come up with a good idea tomorrow. Xiao Shou nodded slightly. Okay. Although they didn't do anything for the whole day, they felt very tired for some reason. However, just as they were about to rest, they suddenly found that the ground under their feet began to tremble. Sensing this change, Xiao Shou immediately opened her eyes and looked nervously at Jun Lingxuan. Jun Lingxuan, I just felt that the ground seemed to shake. Did you feel it? She only hoped that it was her imagination. However, Jun Lingxuan nodded with a serious expression. I also felt it. At the same time, Chu Yingming and the others carefully sensed the situation around them. After seeing that there was no other situation, they were relieved. It should be fine. Let's rest. The originally nervous crowd also nodded their heads. Thinking about it, there shouldn't be any problems with the ground. After a while, they suddenly felt that the ground under their feet seemed to shake again. What's going on? Xiao Shou frowned. This kind of situation made her feel uneasy. Inexplicably, why would the ground shake? Jun Lingxuan and the others also stood up and looked around. However, nothing had happened. They couldn't figure out what was going on. It's clearly nothing. Why would the ground move all of a sudden? Could it be that some demonic beast is attacking the ground? Such a large piece of land, ordinary demonic beasts wouldn't be able to cause the ground to shake, right? Everyone looked at each other and felt that this situation was extremely strange. Look, something seems to have happened on the other side of the river. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was in the middle of cultivating, heard the discussions around her. She opened her eyes and looked at the opposite side. In his line of sight, the cultivators of the four families were clearly a little flustered. They were wandering around like headless flies. It was obvious that something unexpected had happened. Master, what happened to them? Xiao He looked at the other side of the river curiously. Logically speaking, even if they were temporarily trapped there shouldn't be any problems in the short term. It had only been a short while, so there was no need to be so anxious, right? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head with a puzzled expression. I don't know. Don't worry. If something really happened, we'll know when we continue watching. Di Beichen's expression was calm and indifferent. If the heavens could directly take the lives of Jun Lingxuan and the others, that would be good. These stumbling blocks would only hinder their development. Chapter 50-15. In their opinion, the Jun family deserved to die. Over the years, the Jun family had schemed against them countless times. Those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. In my opinion, even the heavens can't tolerate them. Lin Qianqian chuckled and looked at the other side of the river as if she was watching a joke. I just don't know how they'll be dealt with. After everyone discovered what was happening on the other side of the river, they stopped cultivating and looked at the other side as if they were watching a show. The cultivators from the other families didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for them. In fact, having fewer competitors would only be more beneficial for them. As the sky gradually brightened, everyone began to understand what was happening on the other side. Oh my God, am I seeing things? When Xiren's face was filled with astonishment, the ground is actually starting to crack? When it was dark, they couldn't see clearly, but as the sky gradually brightened, they could finally see it clearly. As Xiren's voice fell, everyone turned to look. Sure enough, the ground where Jun Lingxuan and the others were standing began to crack. Cracks appeared on the ground, which was an extremely rare occurrence. If it were any other time, everyone would be extremely shocked. But now, connecting the dots, they felt that they could encounter danger at any moment in the environment they were currently in. Jun Lingxuan and the others naturally saw the situation they were in, and their faces immediately turned ugly. Damn it, how could this be? Chu Yingming frowned and his face was covered with haze. Even if he had expected that there would be danger if they continued to stay here, this speed was too fast. They didn't have much time to think before all their escape routes were cut off. In that case, we must leave before the ground collapses. Otherwise, we'll be fed to the fish in the river. Nangong Yuqing's face was filled with disbelief. He didn't expect things to happen so quickly. His mind was completely chaotic and he couldn't think of a way out. When the disciples of the four families thought of the cultivators who had been eaten by the fish, they felt their hair stand on end. They didn't want to follow in their footsteps. What do we do? The ground is cracking so fast. I'm afraid it won't be long before this land sinks. Countless thoughts of what to do came out from the mouths of the crowd. An indescribable fear covered their hearts. If they couldn't leave this place, only death awaited them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the situation behind her and her gaze turned deep. It seems that from the moment we came here, there is no turning back. Hearing this, Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand tightly. Wife, I'm here. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and pursed her lips into a smile. With you around, I'm at ease. The heavens have really made up their minds to take them away. A cold smile appeared in Lin Chanxian's eyes. Let them be buried in the belly of the fishes. That's the best ending. She had been looking forward to the fall of the Jun family for a long time. As for the Xiao family, it was the same. From the day they became rivals, there was no longer any friendship between them. The stronger the opponent, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Isn't this good? We can watch the show here. Lin Yi chuckled and patted Xiao Xuanzi's head again. Xiao Xuanzi, it's all thanks to you this time. Chapter 5016. The cultivators from the four great clans looked at the ground that was constantly cracking, their faces filled with anxiety. Most importantly, they could clearly feel that the entire ground was beginning to tremble, and even their position was gradually sinking. Once this piece of land fell apart and there was no place to stand, it meant that they would have to cross the river and face the piranhas directly. However, the restriction in the river and the piranhas were a situation that they could not deal with at all. What should we do? We can't just sit here and wait for death, right? The cultivators' hearts could not help but begin to crumble. They did not want to lose their lives here. Jun Lingshuan's mind was constantly thinking about how to leave, but no matter how hard he tried, his mind was in a mess. The ground under his feet continued to collapse, and as the cracks covered the entire ground, the speed of the collapse became extremely fast. The threat of death loomed over his head. All this time, he had never fallen into such a desperate situation. It was not until the last time he fought with Bailey Hongzhuang that he felt that death was so close to him. He thought that such a situation would not happen again in the future, but he did not expect that only a short period of time had passed. The shadow of death once again loomed over his head. For a moment, his heart was crumbling. Lingshuan, if we can't find a way to leave this place, then we'll really be in trouble. Xiao Sou's eyes were filled with anxiety. The time left for them was too short, and she did not want to lose her life here. Jun Lingshuan glanced at Xiao Sou, and immediately understood what she meant. He won't agree. Jun Lingshuan slowly said. Di Beichen clearly hated him to the core, and the cultivators from the Di family and Lin family could not wait to tear the Jun family into pieces. At this time, even if he went to ask for help, the other party would not relent. No matter what, we have to give it a try, Xiao Sou said. She also understood that asking the Di family for help at this time was asking for their own humiliation. However, other than this method, they could not think of any other way. Perhaps they would be humiliated, but as long as there was a glimmer of hope, they would not give up. Jun Lingshuan took a deep look at Xiao Sou before he nodded. The next moment, he looked at Di Beichen on the other side of the river. Di Beichen, what do I have to do for you to help me? Seeing Jun Lingshuan asking for help at this time, Di Xiaofeng and the others sneered in their hearts. Is this Jun Lingshuan out of his mind? Asking us for help? Is it possible? Lin Taxing rolled his eyes. He only hoped that the riverbank would collapse faster so that they could solve some of their problems. In order to not die, of course he's willing to do anything. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were cold as he sneered. Di Beichen looked indifferently at Jun Lingshuan, who was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. His voice was cold without any warmth. Unless you want to die. These simple words directly cut off Jun Lingshuan's hope. His face became extremely ugly, but he was still unreconciled. Bewitching, the contradiction between you and me is not without the slightest possibility of being resolved. Do you really have to be so ruthless? For a guy like you who doesn't keep his word, being buried in the belly of a fish is the best outcome. There's nothing wrong with being ruthless. Chapter 50:17. Being cruel to the enemy was being lenient to oneself. The surrounding cultivators looked at Bewitching, and their hearts shuddered. It seemed that the young master of the D family was a decisive person. As long as it was an opponent, he would never show any mercy. They had to be more careful when interacting with him in the future. Otherwise, if they offended him, there would be no room for reconciliation in the future. Even so, everyone knew that this was the style of a strong person. Jun Lingshuan stared at Bewitching. His eyes were full of anger and frustration, but more than that, he was helpless. If it were her, it would be impossible for her to help Bewitching in this situation. But what could she do now? Xiao Soa couldn't help but say, Di Xiaofeng, considering the friendship between the Xiao family and you in the past, can't you help us this time? That's right, we used to be good friends. Xiao Sudong hurriedly said. In his impression, the Di family had always been easy to talk to. The relationship between the two families was also very harmonious. Even if the situation had changed now, they could at least consider the old friendship, right? However, Xiao Sou caused Lin Chanqian to chuckle. Xiao Sou, you were the first to betray us, weren't you? It was you who turned around and joined forces with the Jun family, intending to kill us. Now that you are in trouble, you come to us for help. Do you really think you are a fairy? Why should we help you? Lin Chanqian's eyes were cold. She had seen shameless people before, but she had never seen such a shameless person. Lin Chanqian, you are a member of the Lin family. This is a matter between us and the Di family. You don't have to tell us what to do. Xiao Sou's eyes flashed with a trace of maliciousness. She ignored Lin Chanqian and looked at Di Xiaofeng. Di Xiaofeng speak. Di Xiaofeng's face was cold as he said, Xiao Sou, there is one thing you may not understand. I am the young master of the Lin family. If you want to ask the Di family for help, you should look for Bewitching. A smile appeared on Lin Chanqian's face as soon as she heard this. Xiao Sou paused for a moment. Di Xiaofeng's words made sense, but when it came to Bewitching, big sister, we can't care about face at this time. Just ask. Xiao Sudong used his elbow to nudge Xiao Sou. At a time like this, as long as he could preserve his life, even if he had to feign civility, it was nothing. A hint of struggle and hesitation flashed across Xiao Sou's eyes. In the end, she chose to speak. Bewitching, for the sake of our past friendship, please help us this time. With Xiao Sou's words, everyone's eyes fell on Bewitching. If I remember correctly, there was originally an engagement between Xiao Sou and Bewitching, but because Bewitching was married, the engagement was cancelled. Not only that, the reason why the Xiao family broke with the Di family was because the engagement was not consummated. Do you think Bewitching will help? In any case, this Xiao Sou used to like him. Bailey Hongzhuang is by his side. Everyone watching the show was excited. This kind of emotional drama was undoubtedly something everyone had been paying attention to. Lin Yi and others also looked at Bewitching. They didn't know what choice Bewitching would make. Chapter 50:18. Xiao Sou was slightly startled. What is it? We don't have any friendship between us. Bewitching's ink-black jade-like eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. His tone was resolute and cold, without the slightest hint of friendship. As Bewitching's voice fell, time seemed to have stopped in an instant, and the surroundings were silent. Everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. They didn't expect Bewitching to even reject her in such a straightforward manner. It was completely impossible to refute. Almost everyone felt that Bewitching would at least hesitate for a moment in the face of Xiao Sou's pitiful plea for help. However, how cruel was Bewitching's answer? Friendship? We don't have any friendship between us. If I remember correctly, you previously joined forces with Jun Lingshuan to deal with my wife. Bewitching's eyes narrowed into a line. His cold voice made everyone feel a shocking hostility for no reason. He reached out and grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's arm. His incomparably handsome face was wild and arrogant. It was as if he was swearing an oath to everyone. Anyone who has evil intentions towards my wife is someone that I, Bewitching, must kill. His cold and resolute voice was filled with killing intent. Bewitching's gaze was evil. Obviously, Xiao Shou and Jun Lingxuan were the same existence in his eyes. The surrounding practitioners couldn't help but be dumbfounded after hearing Bewitching's words. However, they were even more aware of Bailey Hongzhuang's position in his heart. I've already heard that the young master of the D family only loves Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, it seems that this isn't wrong at all. I'm afraid that we've underestimated it before. Bailey Hongzhuang is completely Bewitching's reverse-scale existence. Whoever dares to anger Bailey Hongzhuang is equivalent to angering Bewitching. Actually, it's normal for Bailey Hongzhuang to be valued. If she didn't come from the lower realm, with her ability, she would be the pride of the heavens. Everyone looked at each other. Previously, they had only included Bewitching in the list of people they could not afford to provoke. Now, they had included Bailey Hongzhuang as well. After all, offending either of them was tantamount to offending the D family. Most importantly, they felt that the D family was definitely going to rise in power. Bewitching's words were like a sharp knife that pierced Xiao Shou's heart. Even though she had already shifted her attention to Jun Lingxuan, Bewitching was still the one who made her fall in love with him at first sight. She had thought that no matter what choice Bewitching had made, he had at least been moved by her. However, the truth was so cruel. In front of so many people, she felt that she had lost all face. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang standing next to Bewitching, her skin was whiter than snow, her cheeks were rosy, and her eyes were full of affection. She understood that Bewitching had always placed Bailey Hongzhuang at the top of his heart. At this moment, she suddenly envied Bailey Hongzhuang. If someone was willing to place her at the top of his heart, she would be so satisfied. Lin Yi and Lin Qianqian couldn't help but look at each other. I suddenly feel that second cousin's figure is more stalwart. Don't you think your second cousin is cruel? Lin Qianqian raised her eyebrows. It was the first time she had seen someone reject a beauty so ruthlessly. Chapter 50-19. Listening to Lin Yi's words, Lin Qianqian pretended to think, but she couldn't hide the envy in her eyes. If it were me, I would think that it's great. Lin Yi laughed and nodded. You should have such an attitude towards other women. It is best to treat yourself well. Not only Lin Yi and Lin Qianqian, but in fact, Bailey Hongzhuang had become the object of envy of all the women present. Where can you find such a handsome man with such identity, status who is so infatuated? However, Bailey Hongzhuang found him. How can this not make people envious? Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Bewitching. She had always been clear about Bewitching's feelings for her. She had never doubted it. However, she did not expect Bewitching to announce it in public at this moment. She was a little surprised, but she was more surprised. It was this man who made her have no regrets. Xiao Shou was gloomy for a while. Everyone's gaze made her face turn green and red, but she couldn't help it. Sister, this Bewitching is too much. Xiao Sudong's face was pale. He didn't expect Bewitching to be so disrespectful. It seems that the D family can't help. Jun Lingxuan's face was slightly gloomy. The situation in front of him really made him feel tricky. The most important thing was that he couldn't show despair. Otherwise, the family's children would only be more desperate. Xiao Shou nodded. She was still immersed in her own emotions, but after hearing this, she also came back to her senses. Now was obviously not the time to be busy with sadness. The most important thing was how to survive and protect her own life. Nangong Yuqing and Chu Yingming also looked at each other after seeing Jun Lingxuan and Lin Qianqian's failure. This really cut off all their thoughts. How about, we go back before the ground completely collapses? Maybe those locusts are gone. Nangong Yuqing looked at everyone. It was obviously impossible to pass through the school of fish, but if they turned back now, there might be a glimmer of hope. After all, they didn't see the locusts after that. Perhaps the locusts had already disappeared. Hearing Nangong Yuqing's words, many cultivators' eyes lit up. Compared to the hopeless situation ahead, there was a chance of survival if they turned back. As long as they could survive, they didn't care where they went. The locusts will not disappear. Even if they go, it will only be another way to die. Chu Yingming's eyes were filled with the light of contemplation as he suddenly spoke. Nangong Yuqing frowned. He didn't understand why Chu Yingming was so certain. Don't you think the environment here is strange? Chu Yingming looked at everyone. From the moment we were chased by locusts to the moment we encountered this shoal of fish, it was like a checkpoint after checkpoint, a test for us. Now that the river was collapsing, it was clearly telling us that there was no way out. If you don't succeed, you'll lose your life. At first, he didn't understand this point, but after he calmed down and connected all the dots, he naturally understood. It was just like how they normally trained. This was also a type of training, but the risk was even greater. After hearing this, Xiao Shou and the others looked at each other and began to seriously think about what he had said. Chapter 50-20. So, there is no hope for us? Nangong Yuqing's face was pale. He didn't want to lose his life. Originally, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart, but now, there was no hope at all. If you don't believe me, you can try it yourself. Chu Yingming didn't intend to persuade Nangong Yuqing. It didn't matter to him whether Nangong Yuqing lived or died. The only thing he cared about was whether he could survive. Seeing this, Nangong Yuqing's heart sank. He also understood that Chu Yingming didn't need to lie to him at this time. Most importantly, he knew that Chu Yingming's words were very reasonable. Now, everything was out of their control. From the moment they stepped into this place, they might have already fallen into someone else's trap. Then what should we do now? Jun Lingshuan's expression was complicated. They couldn't go forward, and they couldn't go back. This was equivalent to completely locking them in here. However, the ground under their feet was rapidly sliding down. It wouldn't be long before they fell into the river. Xiao Shou looked at the river and found that the fish in the river were excitedly looking at them. Apparently, they were already about to eat them. Thinking that they might be eaten by the fish, she felt a chill down her spine. She didn't want to end up like this. How about we fight to the death and directly rush over? Xiao Shou looked at Jun Lingshuan. If we continue to stay here, we will die. If we all rush over, at least some of us may survive. Although the number of fish in the river was not small, if they rushed over together as long as they spread out, there would be some lucky people who could survive. Rather than waiting for death here, it was better to fight. Hearing this, Jun Lingshuan looked at Xiao Shou and lowered his voice. So, don't worry. Let's wait a little longer. Xiao Shou was surprised. She didn't understand why they were still waiting at this time. Did they not give up? The D family won't help us. She couldn't help but emphasize. Jun Lingshuan nodded. I know. I'm not waiting for the D family, but for Chu Yingming. Chu Yingming? Xiao Shou was slightly surprised. She was completely confused. Why is Chu Yingming waiting? He doesn't have any other choice now. No. Jun Lingshuan shook his head. Chu Yingming must have some tricks up his sleeve. Originally, he was also in a state of panic. However, he also noticed that although Chu Yingming was also very anxious, he was far less anxious than the cultivators from the other three families. This meant that Chu Yingming still had a trump card. Although he didn't know what it was, as long as Chu Yingming hadn't used it, he would continue to wait. Xiao Shou couldn't help but look at Chu Yingming. After calming down, she also found that Chu Yingming's reaction was somewhat strange. Although he was anxious, he didn't panic. He immediately understood what Jun Lingshuan meant. The ground began to collapse rapidly, and the river began to submerge everyone's feet. The school of fish rushed over, and cries of alarm came from everyone's mouth. The piranhas are rushing up. Damn it! Why is it that even my essence energy is being suppressed while standing here? Isn't this river a little too strange? Chapter 50-21. To their horror, they discovered that the moment the river water reached their feet, their elemental energy was suppressed. Almost everyone wanted to use their origin power to rise into the air, but they found that they couldn't. As the river widened, the effect of the air restriction was completely revealed. The piranhas had been waiting for a long time, so they immediately rushed up, not giving anyone time to react. "Young master, what should we do?" The Chu family cultivators anxiously looked at Chu Yingming. Facing the school of fish, they were really caught unprepared. Chu Yingming heard the screams around him and hesitated. In the end, he made a decision, but his gaze became deeper. In the next moment, under everyone's astonished gaze, a huge toad appeared in front of Chu Yingming. The toad's body was extremely large, and its entire body was green, like green jade. It was glossy and gave off a different kind of beauty. However, this toad seemed to be in a deep sleep. After it appeared, it stood in place without moving. With the appearance of this toad, everyone immediately recognized the type of toad. This is a jade toad? Heavens! Chu Yingming actually has a jade toad. This is an extremely rare demonic beast. All this time, I've only heard of it, but I've never seen it before. After Bailey Hongzhuang saw the jade toad, a trace of surprise appeared in her clear eyes. She also had some understanding of the jade toad. The jade toad was an extremely high-ranked demonic beast. Although it hadn't reached the ranks of divine beasts, it was still not comparable to ordinary demonic beasts. This demonic beast was not only rare, but it was also extremely difficult to tame. Up until now, she had never heard of anyone taming a jade toad. She didn't expect Chu Yingming to be able to do it. From the looks of it, this jade toad is still in a deep sleep. Summoning it at this time will cause quite a bit of damage to it. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was crisp. It might even cause all of our previous efforts to be wasted. Once the jade toad fell into a deep sleep, it meant that the jade toad was about to advance. During the advancement process, it couldn't be disturbed. Once disturbed, it meant that it couldn't advance successfully. If it wanted to advance again in the future, the difficulty would greatly increase. Not only that, the piranhas in this river can absorb elemental energy. They will definitely absorb the jade toad's elemental energy. It would appear that Chu Yingming was forced to make such a choice. Bewitching narrowed his bewitching eyes. Just by thinking about it, he could tell just how much despair Chu Yingming must have felt to make such a decision. However, this was a good thing for them. After all, it was not a good thing for the opponent to have such a powerful weapon. It was best to cripple him as soon as possible. Xiren and the others looked at each other, then their gazes fell on the jade toad once again. It must be said that Chu Yingming and the jade toad posed quite a threat to them. In their line of sight, as soon as the jade toad appeared, the school of fish pounced on it and bit it. "Young master, why did you summon the jade toad?" When the Chu clan disciples saw Chu Yingming make such a choice, they were all stunned. They were very clear about the price Chu Yingming had paid to obtain this jade toad. Chapter 50-22. At this time, I can't think of any other way. Chu Yingming's face was gloomy. His heart was also bleeding. Only he knew how much effort he had spent on this jade toad. Now it was all for naught. However, in such a dangerous situation, his own life was more important. If he couldn't even protect his own life, then all of this would be useless. Hearing this, the Chu family's disciples were also distressed. However, they also understood that their young master was right. Right now, they had no other choice. If there was even the slightest possibility, their young master wouldn't have made such a choice. When Nangong Yuqing saw that Chu Yingming had such a trump card, he couldn't help but be shocked. He didn't think that Chu Yingming would be able to do such a thing. However, the jade toad's body was so big that they could step on it to cross the river. Jun Lingxuan had already expected Chu Yingming to have a trump card, so he wasn't as surprised as the others. However, he couldn't help but sigh. If the jade toad successfully evolved, then with Chu Yingming's strength, his influence would definitely be stronger than before. Xiao Sou quietly let out a sigh of relief. She turned to Jun Lingxuan and said, "Ling Sun, your guess was right." Jun Lingxuan nodded. "We still have to get Chu Yingming to agree to help us." At the same time, Nangong Yuqing took the lead and said, "Chu Yingming, can you help us cross the river? We can use treasures to exchange for it." Jun Lingxuan added, Chu Yingming looked at the two and nodded, okay. From the moment he chose to use the Jade Toad, he had already expected the result. Since he was destined to lose the Jade Toad, he had to at least earn some benefits. Otherwise, it would be a real pity. Seeing Chu Yingming agree, Jun Lingxuan and the others were overjoyed. At least they had a way to cross the river. In the next moment, the three of them took out things from their storage rings and placed them in their universe bags before handing them over to Chu Yingming. After receiving the items, Chu Yingming looked at the three and said, "In addition, I want you to promise me something." "What is it?" The three of them frowned as they looked at Chu Yingming. They didn't want to be threatened by Chu Yingming to do something they didn't want. "After we cross the river, we'll join forces to destroy the D family." Following Chu Yingming's words, Jun Lingxuan and the others stared blankly for a moment before loosening their frowns. "No problem. Jun, of course, Chu." Dealing with the D clan was something he was most willing to do. Now that Chu Yingming wanted him to do this, there was no problem at all. There was no need for Chu Yingming to bring it up. He himself wanted to do this. Nangong after all, the D families, he's of a choose chut. On if they could join forces to deal with the D clan, it would be beneficial to him as well. After all, if he were to meet them alone in the future, he would have to worry about the risks. If he could deal with them now, not only would he regain his face, but he would also be able to solve a problem. Xiao Soa didn't answer, but her attitude was very clear. She was now in the same boat as Jun Lingxuan. Chapter 5023. Please enter the text. Once we cross the river, we'll act. Chu Yingming's gaze swept across the crowd. He would never agree to help anyone cross the river if there was even the slightest bit of hesitation in their eyes. Fortunately, Jun Lingxuan and the others did not hesitate at all, which allowed him to relax. He could not tolerate the fact that his painstaking efforts over such a long period of time had been destroyed just like that. He must kill the culprit himself. Only then would he be able to vent his anger. Otherwise, he would not be able to cultivate properly no matter what. "Let's cross the river." As Chu Yingming's voice fell, he immediately stepped on the Jade Toad's body and crossed the river. At the same time, the other cultivators also crossed over one after another. The sleeping Jade Toad felt uncomfortable being bitten by a group of piranhas. However, it was unable to wake up from its slumber. However, the crowd saw that the gigantic Jade Toad was rapidly shrinking and becoming food for the school of piranhas. These piranhas are really terrifying. When Xiren could not help but sigh as he watched the rare Jade Toad become food for the school of piranhas. The most shocking thing was the speed of these piranhas. It was no wonder that the cultivators from before had disappeared in the blink of an eye. With this speed, it would only take the blink of an eye to finish eating. Chu Yingming and the others seemed to be talking about something just now. Di Xiaofeng frowned slightly and looked at Di Beichen. This time, Chu Yingming has suffered such a great loss. He will never let this matter rest. In my opinion, once they cross the river, they will definitely come looking for trouble with us. He had known Chu Yingming for quite some time. Although they had not interacted much, he had a good understanding of his character. He was a vengeful person, not to mention such a great loss. It would not be in line with his personality if he did not take revenge. As Di Xiaofeng's voice fell, a trace of seriousness appeared on the faces of Lin Taxing and the others. Indeed, they had to deal with this properly. Di Beichen was also aware of this point. His gaze swept across Chu Yingming and the others who were not far away. The influence of these four families is not small. Apart from the Jun family, which has a small number of people, the other three families also have a large number of people. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, "Our side only has our three families working together. I'm afraid we're lacking in numbers." Although they had obtained quite a number of placements through the alchemy competition, the number of cultivators who were qualified to enter the immortal cloud mystic realm was limited. Therefore, quite a number of placements had been auctioned off. Now that the cultivators of the three clans were added together, they naturally couldn't win against the other party. Once a battle broke out, they would be at a disadvantage. Di Beichen narrowed his eyes. "As long as we control the leader, we still have a chance." Hearing Di Beichen's words, everyone immediately understood what he meant. As long as Chu Yingming and the others were under control, their family disciples would naturally not attack again. It's useless to think so much now. If they've made up their minds to attack, we'll fight to the end. Lin Taxing's eyes sparkled with excitement. In fact, he should have taken action long ago. Now that there was a chance to fight, it was not bad. That's right. At worst, we'll just have to fight. We don't know the final result yet. Murong Jing also spoke up. I think that Jun Lingxuan has been unhappy for a long time. Chapter 50-24. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, everyone's eyes narrowed. Indeed, just as he said, the other four families had indeed formed an alliance. However, it was only because of the environment. They did not have deep feelings for each other. Once the other side was defeated, perhaps some of them would retreat. After all, their previous alliance was also so weak. After what happened just now, their alliance has become more stable. Di Xiaofeng's expression darkened. Seeing the other side quickly cross the river, his gaze became even more gloomy. However, we are not afraid. The cultivators from the Di family, Lin family, and Murong family realized what was going to happen next and immediately prepared to fight. They were not afraid at all. At the same time, Chu Yingming and the others quickly appeared in front of Di Beichen's group. After seeing this scene, the surrounding cultivators also felt the change in the atmosphere. They immediately understood that a great battle was unavoidable. Di Beichen, I'm sorry to let your plan fall through. Chu Yingming's gaze was ruthless and did not hide it at all. His eagle-like eyes stared at Di Beichen like a cheetah staring at its prey. He did not give the other party any chance to dodge. However, Di Beichen also did not have any thoughts of dodging. That's not necessarily true. Di Beichen's lips curled up slightly as he looked at Chu Yingming with a smile that was not a smile. His cold words were filled with pressure and dominance. The meaning was very simple. Even if you cross the river, you won't be able to survive. Chu Yingming's gaze became even more ruthless, filled with dense killing intent. If looks could kill, Di Beichen would have died thousands of times already. You're really arrogant. Chu Yingming was so angry that he laughed. He narrowed his eyes and every word was filled with dense killing intent. Don't you know that if you're too arrogant, you'll be targeted sooner or later? I've always been targeted. Di Beichen's expression was indifferent. His indifferent appearance made it seem like he was chatting about the weather. However, I'm still fine right now. When Di Beichen said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but reveal a faint smile. Indeed, from the lower realm until now, they did not know how many opponents they had encountered. However, in the end, they still managed to survive unscathed. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave wins. Until the end, no one knew who the real winner was. At least, they had never feared. Di Beichen, your good luck ends today. Jun Lingxun took a step forward. The elemental energy in his body began to surge, and a surging pressure directly crushed Di Beichen. Today was the best chance for them to kill Di Beichen. He did not want to miss it. Facing Jun Lingxuan's pressure, Di Beichen waved his hand and shattered it. His deep eyes were filled with ridicule and impatience. Don't use this kind of three-legged cat to embarrass yourself. It's a waste of time. Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan's expression turned cold. Without hesitation, he charged towards Di Beichen. You're courting death. Bang. Two fists collided. An astonishing energy burst out. The two of them were originally enemies. The grudge between the two families had been going on for a long time. Therefore, when they fought, neither of them held back at all. The scattered energy overflowed. The air was directly cut in half and a spatial crack appeared. However, after the exchange, Jun Lingxuan's eyes narrowed and revealed a trace of surprise. Chapter 50-25. According to their judgment, Di Beichen came from the lower realms, so his strength was definitely not on par with theirs. However, he had attacked with the intention of killing Di Beichen and didn't hold back at all. He didn't expect that Di Beichen would be able to take his punch. From the strength of his punch, he could clearly feel that Di Beichen had also reached the nebula realm. This discovery shocked him greatly. No matter how he looked at it, Bewitching, who came from the lower realms, couldn't possibly be on par with them. One had to know that his cultivation was considered outstanding among the cultivators who had entered the immortal cloud's secret realm. How could Bewitching be on the same level as him? The cultivation resources of the lower realms couldn't be compared to the upper realms. When Jun Lingshuan attacked, Nangong Yuqing's eyes secretly revealed a trace of ridicule. Previously, everyone felt that it was strange that he didn't want to continue fighting with Bewitching, which made him lose face. Now that there was someone like him, he was naturally happy to see it. Sure enough, he soon saw Jun Lingshuan's complicated expression. The surrounding cultivators also wanted to know Bewitching's strength. They all had some understanding of Jun Lingshuan. After all, over the years, Jun Lingshuan could be seen at any place where the younger generation went to train. Even if they hadn't seen him for a period of time, they could still roughly judge Jun Lingshuan's strength. Jun Lingshuan didn't hide the shock and astonishment on his face, so everyone could see it clearly. Immediately, they had a direct understanding of Bewitching's strength. It seems that Bewitching's cultivation has also reached the nebula realm. Otherwise, Jun Lingshuan wouldn't have such an expression. It's really hard to imagine. Didn't they say that he came from the lower realms? Could it be a cover? Maybe Bewitching has been with the D family all these years and is just a secret weapon that the D family has been secretly cultivating. It can't be, right? There's no need for the D family to act so well. Everyone looked at each other, but they couldn't hide the shock in their hearts. Whether it was Bewitching or Bailey Hongzhuang, they did not seem to be from the lower realms at all. Of course, no one was willing to accept this answer, because that would only show how much of a failure they were. Bewitching looked at Jun Lingshuan with an indifferent expression. His lips curled into a mocking smile as he said, "I'm afraid that's not enough for you to kill me." Jun Lingshuan's face was ashen, but he didn't get angry. Bewitching, don't be complacent too early. When the real battle starts, it's not certain who will win. I will use my combat strength to tell you that if you don't have enough foundation, then your cultivation won't be enough. Bewitching, this is the trouble you brought to your family. Use your death to pay for it. Chu Yingming's cold voice was filled with endless sharp killing intent. When he thought about how his jade toad had actually fallen because of this matter, he was filled with anger. He wished that he could tear everyone from the D family into pieces. However, at this moment, Chen Feng walked to Bewitching's side. Seeing Chen Feng's appearance, a trace of astonishment flashed in Chu Yingming's eyes before they became gloomy again. Chen Feng, could it be that your great devil sect wants to help the D family? Everyone's gaze landed on Chen Feng. All along, Chen Feng had never helped anyone in a battle. That was because he had always been indifferent. As long as no one provoked him, he wouldn't care. Chapter 5026. The Great Devil Sect was an extremely powerful existence among all the other sections. As the eldest disciple of the Great Devil Sect, Chen Feng's strength was needless to say. Originally, the D family and the others were at a disadvantage. However, once the Great Devil Sect decided to join, this disadvantage would become an advantage. Everyone looked at each other, wondering if Chen Feng would do this. However, facing Chu Yingming's question, Chen Feng shook his head. The Great Devil Sect will not join. As soon as he said this, Chu Yingming and the others breathed a sigh of relief as a smile appeared on their lips. However, before their smiles could fully blossom, Chen Feng's words rang out once again. However, I will join. Jun Lingshuan and the others were stunned as they looked at Chen Feng in disbelief. However, they immediately understood what he meant. This matter was a grudge between them and the D family. It had nothing to do with the Great Devil Sect. Therefore, the disciples of the Great Devil Sect would not participate. However, Chen Feng's choice to help Bewitching was his personal decision and had nothing to do with the Great Devil Sect. This meant that the only reason he was standing here was because of Chen Feng. When Bewitching and the others heard Chen Feng's words, a trace of appreciation and a smile appeared in their eyes. At least, they did not misjudge Chen Feng. Chu Yingming lowered his voice as he looked at Chen Feng. Chen Feng, are you determined to be my enemy? Chen Feng, on the other hand, had a calm expression. Am I not clear enough? Perhaps Chu Yingming's threat would be effective against others. However, it was meaningless against Chen Feng. Xiao Shou and the others looked at each other. Although it was only Chen Feng, they were clear on how strong he was. He would be able to affect the outcome of this battle. Then you can die together with me. Chu Yingming's eyes were blood-red. He, who was engulfed in anger, had a feeling that he would kill anyone who stood in his way. No matter who dared to stop him at this time, he would not hesitate to kill them. In the next instant, Chu Yingming led the Chu family's team and charged forward. At the same time, Nangong Yuqing and the others did not delay. They were clear that this was the best time to make their move. If he didn't make a move now, it would be even more difficult to make a move later. Fortunately, the other disciples of the Great Devil Sect did not join them. Even with the addition of Chen Feng, the ending might not necessarily change. Boom! An astonishing amount of elemental energy surged out from everyone's body. The tyrannical power and the boundless pressure enveloped one another, spreading a terrifying aura. The entire sky seemed to have darkened in an instant, revealing a deep sense of oppression, making it difficult for people to breathe. When the other cultivators saw that this battle was unavoidable, they all retreated a certain distance. They didn't want to be involved in it for no reason. Jun Lingxuan immediately greeted Di Beichen. In the past, he had always regarded Di Beichen as a thorn in his side, but ever since Di Beichen appeared, the person he hated became Di Beichen. Today, he would kill Di Beichen with his own hands. Seeing Jun Lingxuan rushing over, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a cold light. The other party's actions were exactly what he wanted. For a moment, the cultivators from both sides collided. The scope of the battle was extremely large. Once they met their opponents, they showed no mercy. After all, both sides were enemies. As a woman, Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent should have been Xiao Shou. However, Xiao Shou was clearly still fearful of what had happened last time. Chapter 5027. Lin Qianqian and the rest were surprised when they saw that Xiao Shou was hiding from Bailey Hongzhuang. However, they quickly understood what was going on. They had previously heard from Di Beichen that Xiao Shou and Jun Lingxuan were unable to defeat Bailey Hongzhuang even after joining forces. They initially thought that it was a joke. However, judging from Xiao Shou's performance, they could tell that it was not a joke. It was real. I never thought that Xiao Shou would hide from Hongzhuang. This is interesting. Lin Qianqian chuckled. Her figure flashed and appeared in front of Xiao Shou. Seeing Lin Qianqian's appearance, Xiao Shou's eyes flashed with a strange look. However, she did not intend to escape. Xiao Shou, life is really strange. I've always disliked you. I never thought that my wish would come true and we would become opponents. Lin Qianqian's expression was cold. Her words were tit for tat and she did not show any mercy. Lin Qianqian, I was indeed slightly inferior to you the last time we fought. However, you don't have to be too proud because of that. Every dog has its day. You may not be my opponent now. Xiao Shou's black eyes flashed with a cold light. Ever since she was slightly inferior to Lin Qianqian, she felt an inexplicable sense of superiority in front of her. This made her very unhappy. Lin Qianqian was a disgrace to her existence. Today, she was going to kill Lin Qianqian with her own hands. Try me then. In the next moment, the two of them used all their moves and collided with each other. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to find an opponent, a woman from the Nangong family targeted her and launched a sneak attack when she was unprepared. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had always been extremely sensitive to danger. Even though she had taken the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, she did not succeed. Her extremely sharp eyes emitted a shocking killing intent. The other party's sneak attack had obviously angered Bailey Hongzhuang. Her eyes were burning as she held the thought-severing sword and attacked directly. When the woman saw Bailey Hongzhuang's emotionless eyes, she couldn't help but be startled. A feeling of fear arose in her heart for no reason. However, she quickly calmed down. She had chosen Bailey Hongzhuang as her opponent because Bailey Hongzhuang had attracted a lot of attention. As long as she could kill Bailey Hongzhuang, she would definitely attract more attention. On the other hand, Bailey Hongzhuang came from the lower realms and was also an alchemist. Her cultivation was naturally incomparable to theirs. Stepping on her to get to the top was undoubtedly the best option. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang made her move, she realized that she had been too naive. That was because Bailey Hongzhuang's combat power was similarly astonishing. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were as fast as lightning. Her figure flashed like a whirlwind, and before she could even see clearly what had happened, she felt a chill on her neck. Immediately after, a warm feeling gushed out from her neck. Bailey Hongzhuang was merciless. Being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. If these people were allowed to live, they would only bring endless trouble to them. When everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang kill one of them, their eyes lit up. Immediately, they felt greatly encouraged and their attacks became even more ferocious. Di Xiaofeng faced Chu Yingming without any surprise. As for Qin Feng, he faced Nangong Yuqing. Chapter 5028. Unfortunately, his opponent was Qin Feng. Years ago, he had lost to Qin Feng in a competition. Over the years, everyone had tacitly agreed that Qin Feng was the number one and he was the number two. Normally, it was fine for him to have such thoughts. However, at this time, Qin Feng had taken the initiative to come knocking on his door. This was simply infuriating him to death. Qin Feng was obviously unaware of Di Beichen's thoughts. In his opinion, since he was going to help the Di family, he naturally had to delay their experts. This way, the situation of Di Beichen and the others would be alleviated. Among all the participants, the battle between Jun Lingxuan and Di Beichen was the fiercest. It could be said that when enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Di Beichen did not mind wandering outside all these years. After all, if it were not for this experience, he would not have met Bailey Hongzhuang. However, when he thought about how his family had been heartbroken for so many years due to the despicable methods of the Jun family and the estrangement between his parents, one could imagine the anger in his heart. More importantly, this damnable guy had actually joined hands with an evil cultivator and almost took Hongzhuang's life. This was something he could not tolerate. Jun Lingxuan was also full of energy. After being suppressed all this time, he had long wanted to vent his anger. As long as he could kill Di Beichen today, all the resentment from before would be instantly restored. Di Beichen, you will definitely die by my hands today. Jun Lingxuan's sharp sword stabbed out violently. Every move was ruthless, aiming for a fatal spot. Di Beichen held the severed emotion sword in his hand. Facing the attacks from all directions, he was still as calm as ever, as smooth as flowing water. My wife already taught you a lesson last time. Seems like your memory is not very good? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. His cold voice was filled with ridicule and sarcasm, but the depths of his eyes were as cold as winter. Jun Lingxuan's expression turned ugly when he heard this. Thinking back to how they were defeated by Bailey Hongzhuang even after joining forces, it was really embarrassing. If possible, he only hoped that no one would mention it again. Di Beichen, don't be too proud. I admit that Bailey Hongzhuang's methods are not bad, but you're just a freeloader. Speaking of which, can you really beat Bailey Hongzhuang? Jun Lingxuan sneered mercilessly. After understanding Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, he knew that Di Beichen was no match for Bailey Hongzhuang. Living off a woman? Di Beichen chuckled. Are you talking about yourself? You've been relying on Xiao So all this time, and you're shamelessly enjoying it. Di Beichen. Jun Lingxuan's face turned stiff. To him, he obviously could not accept being called a freeloader. In the next moment, Di Beichen's figure flashed. His movements were as fast as lightning, and his fist, which was mixed with boundless strength, fiercely smashed into Jun Lingxuan's body. Bam! In the blink of an eye, Jun Lingxuan was sent flying and fell to the ground. That tyrannical force made Jun Lingxuan clutch his chest. He felt as if his internal organs had been displaced by this punch, bringing with it an unbearable pain. Poochie! Jun Lingxuan spat out a mouthful of blood. He stared blankly at Di Beichen with horror and shock. Di Beichen's gaze was cold and emotionless, but his voice was proud and domineering. I'm different from you. Chapter 50-29. When they fought before, he clearly felt that Bewitching was on par with him, but in a short moment, Bewitching's cultivation suddenly increased. It was because of this that he was caught off guard and injured. However, at this time, what he was most concerned about was not how serious his injuries were, but how Bewitching could suddenly increase his strength. Faced with Jun Lingshuan's inquiry, Bewitching was too lazy to answer. The next moment, his figure turned into a ray of light, and the severed passion sword in his hand reflected a cold and bloodthirsty light. Without hesitation, he stabbed towards Jun Lingshuan. Seeing the sharp sword rapidly stabbing towards him, Jun Lingshuan's pupils shrank, and the shadow of death once again shrouded him. He immediately wanted to turn around and dodge, but Bewitching's speed was simply too fast. Ding! At this time, a figure appeared in front of Jun Lingshuan. Chu Yingming blocked Bewitching's attack, then glanced at Jun Lingshuan and said, "You go over there, leave this to me." Seeing the sullen face of Chu Yingming, Jun Lingshuan quietly breathed a sigh of relief and quickly stood up. "Thank you." If Chu Yingming was a bit slower, even if he didn't die, he would definitely be seriously injured. Most importantly, once he was seriously injured in this situation, it would be even more difficult to leave alive. Bewitching coldly looked at Chu Yingming, who suddenly appeared. If not for this guy's sudden appearance, Jun Lingshuan would have already become a ghost under his sword. Bewitching, I really underestimated you. Chu Yingming stared at Bewitching, his deep, dark eyes sizing him up with suspicion. Actually, you don't stay in the lower realm, right? Yes or no, what does it have to do with you? Bewitching's face was cold, but his hand that was holding the severed passion sword quietly tightened. His ink-black eyes were filled with bloodlust and killing intent. In the next moment, he pointed his sword at Chu Yingming. Since Jun Lingshuan has left, then you shall die for him. The resolute voice was filled with killing intent and cold-bloodedness. The sunlight shone on the white figure standing there, making him look like a god of war, tyrannical and insufferably arrogant. Facing Bewitching's cold eyes, Chu Yingming felt a strange feeling in his heart. However, he quickly recovered. Thinking that he had been suppressed by Bewitching's aura, he immediately felt unhappy. What a joke! Even if it was Chen Feng, it was still impossible for him to fear him. Bewitching, I'll send you to hell first. Chu Yingming's eyes darkened as he raised his palm. Boundless and surging elemental energy unreservedly swept out from his body. He stomped on the ground and his body tore through the air. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Bewitching. At the same time, a ferocious fist blasted through the air and mercilessly attacked Bewitching's face with an astonishing pressure. The ferocious fist enlarged in front of Bewitching's eyes. However, his calm and cold face showed no fear. Just as everyone was sure that Bewitching would dodge, they found that he had no intention of dodging at all. Instead, he met the fist head-on. Don't look at how Chu Yingming usually hides his strength. In fact, he is very strong. Based on my judgment, he is probably not any weaker than Nangong Yuqing. That's right. Chu Yingming has always been hiding his strength deeply. Coupled with the fact that he usually doesn't make any moves, we can't figure out his specific cultivation level. Chapter 50-30. The spectating cultivators were all paying close attention to the situation of the battle. Understanding the strength of their opponent was also beneficial to them. Usually, everyone would conceal their strength, but obviously in this kind of battle, there would be no concealment. They could directly understand each other's strength. Bang! Bewitching's fist fiercely met the attack. Tyrannical energy exploded. However, before the crowd could see clearly who was stronger, the two had already turned into a whirlwind and started fighting. The speed of the two was so fast that the crowd couldn't see their movements clearly. They could only see that countless fierce energy waves were spreading in all directions, bringing with them an incomparably tyrannical aura. From the looks of it, Chu Yingming's strength has probably reached Nebula rank 2. I really didn't expect him to be so good at hiding. It's really scary to imagine. If it wasn't for the fact that his Jade Toad was destroyed this time, then with the Jade Toad and his strength, he would be the undisputed number one. It wasn't known who said this, but the crowd's expression suddenly changed. Thinking about it carefully, it was indeed so. Bang! Under the two's crazy attacks, a huge circular hole suddenly appeared. Bewitching and Chu Yingming also separated. Only then did the crowd clearly see the situation of the two. However, the two's faces didn't seem to have any changes. The crowd couldn't tell who had the upper hand. Chu Yingming was shocked. All along, he didn't put Jun Lingxuan in his eyes. The Jun family had been suppressed by the Di family all these years. Naturally, there was a certain gap between them and his Chu family. Therefore, when he saw that Jun Lingxuan couldn't beat Bewitching, he didn't find it strange. It wasn't until he fought with Bewitching that he understood that Bewitching's strength was really strong. I have to say, if I knew your strength before, I wouldn't have chosen to be your enemy. Chu Yingming's eyes rippled with a sinister and complicated light. He had always been a person who valued benefits. If the opponent's strength was extremely strong, he wouldn't choose to offend such an opponent. It would only bring him endless trouble. However, since I've already offended you, I can only strangle you in the cradle. Same here. Bewitching's expression was calm. He knew that Chu Yingming was a character. If the other party had not taken the initiative to find trouble, he would not have gone to find trouble with the other party. However, since they were already enemies, the only thing he could do was to make sure the other party no longer had the possibility of threatening him. Seeing Bewitching remain neither servile nor overbearing, Chu Yingming's gaze became increasingly gloomy. The calmer the other party was, the more he felt that the other party had a trump card. Logically speaking, most people would at least have some ripples in their hearts at this moment, but Bewitching didn't, not at all. In front of everyone's eyes, Chu Yingming's elemental energy was dyed with the color of flames. A fire attribute light burst out. For a moment, the surrounding temperature suddenly rose, and the air became boiling hot. Bewitching's expression changed. He also understood that Chu Yingming was of the fire attribute. After Chu Yingming used his fire attribute power, balls of flames appeared between his hands. As he used his martial skills, their might became more and more terrifying. Roar! Following Chu Yingming's hand seals, a huge flaming lion appeared out of thin air. Its fur was burning with flames, and its appearance was vivid and lifelike as if it was alive. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.